The wayfinding landscape is changing, so welcome to Endpoint's new Wayfinding Xchange Podcast. We want to connect with digital and tech specialists to exchange knowledge of new technologies and wayfinding solutions. We want to shape the future of digital wayfinding through discussion, collaboration, and shared expertise. And this is why we have created this new podcast series. Enjoy the episode.
Okay, so we're here today with Chris Johns.
Hello, great to be here.
Thank you very much. Chris is from a company called PassageWay, a digital service provider, which I'm sure we'll go into much more detail about. Yeah, I think for us, Endpoint, we're asked a lot about digital solutions. Virtually every project now, there's some sort of digital element to it. So we thought we'd embark on a bit of a research piece, really, in terms of seeing what's out there, seeing who the players are, and using that information as a resource for ourselves and our potential clients. So tell us about PassageWay. What does it do? What problems does it solve?
We're really about connecting people, places and communities to the real-time public transport information that surrounds them. And what we're hoping to achieve by doing that is to make the choice of public transport easy. So to nudge them into choosing public transport over and above choosing their own car or getting into an Uber. So how we do that is we transform any connected screen, like from your mobile phone through to your desktop to large digital signage screens. We convert those into real-time digital signs showing the local transport information. So, for example, we would show bus times, route information, how long it's going to take you to get to a particular place on that route, any disruption notifications, and then onward travel information. I mean, if I think about an example, sort of analogy of what it is we're trying to do for the public transport authorities, I sort of think about if I was walking down the high street and I thought, well, I need to, it's a long day, I need to go and crash out in a hotel. And I got to the hotel foyer and I walked into the hotel foyer and the foyer still had a fax machine and it still had, a paper-based reservation system. I think that's sort of where we are with the initial handshake that public transport has for many customers, whereby actually we're all used to digital these days, and the paper-based timetables on bus shelters and other assets are no longer even used or looked at by people.
So was PassageWay a sort of speculative piece of innovation, or was there a...
No, so actually we basically have developed it for Transport for London, and we've been working with Transport for London for a number of years. We look after a platform called the DigiSign platform. And the DigiSign platform has a few hundred digital signs around London in various Transport for London infrastructure locations like bus stops and bus stations, but also in schools and hospitals. And PassageWay builds on that work for Transport for London. So it enables us to work beyond London and with other cities around the world.
So I guess, as part of your deal with TfL, they give you access to that real-time information.
Transport for London are a dream because Transport for London are the world's largest integrated transport network, and they have what they call an open data strategy, which means that everything that comprises TfL, whether that's bus, bike, train, tram, tube, it's all in this unified API, and an API is the data source that we had access. And it's all within this data source so that we can grab all this information from TfL, and we know what's going on in pretty much real time.
Sounds great.
It is.
So a bit of a techie question, because we've been involved in probably more a sort of pedestrian city wayfinding systems. Obviously, Legible London's a big part of TfL's armoury of tools. Big part of that obviously is mapping. Is there any hope to get digital mapping up and running?
When we built the PassageWay platform, we actually have been blessed because across London, you've got the Legible London framework where you've got all the walking totems and other sort of wayfinding items that enable people to navigate London easily. And part of that is the maps that T-Cartor and others have developed. And that's helped us enormously because we know that that's a great working platform. So in the PassageWay project, what we've done is that we've built our own mapping system that references as close as we can, but without copying, the Legible London one. But it enables us to easily create reference maps at a click of a button.
Okay, sounds great. So in terms of, obviously, it sounds like PassageWay was born out of this relationship with TfL. So in terms of your potential growth, is that just like a vertical growth? You're looking for other transport operators?
Yeah, so our real target audience is transport authorities and city authorities around the world. In short, there are about 4,500 cities around the world, and we'd like to work with a lot of them. I don't know if you follow too much about the UN goals for 2030, but one of these goals is about providing sustainable transport to citizens around the world. Mm-hmm. And obviously, so part of that, what we're trying to do is to align with that 2030 goal to enable the real-time information around public transport to be made available to the citizens that live in these cities. But the other main thing is that every city around the world, every transport authority needs to get more customers onto public transport, whether that's because of COVID recovery, because a lot of, during the pandemic, public transport was decimated. So now they need to get more customers back onto the public transport network, but they also need to encourage customers onto the network to reduce pollution and the environmental impact of other forms of travel.
Well, that's interesting. So PassageWay, TfL, you're more a software developer rather than physical hardware?
Yeah, we don't do hardware at all. So one of the unique elements of what it is that we do is that we distribute these digital signs as URLs. Mm-hmm. So effectively what they are is web pages. So you could put them on your smartphone, or you could put them on your desktop or laptop, or put them on any internet-connected device with a modern browser. Mm-hmm. So we're hardware agnostic, effectively. So it can go anywhere and everywhere.
So are there some interesting applications that you've worked on in that respect, other than just, I guess, TfL stuff?
TfL have Drive where they put the signs, and you can find them across the TfL infrastructure. During the pandemic, they put them in most of the London hospitals as well to help staff and patients and visitors access the public transport network. An interesting project we're involved in at the moment is for Croydon, where we're helping to support about 120 smart bus shelters that are being deployed across the borough. And we've got two big screens, a 65-inch portrait with a 32-inch landscape above it. And on those, we're showing real-time route information, journey time estimation, onward travel information, pretty much everything that is needed to help engage potential and existing customers. And there's going to be no paper on any of these smart bus shelters. They've been designed by a company called Grimshaw's, so they're beautiful.
So how do you, might be a bit of a dirty question, how do you make money? Is it a licensing, or is it project-based fees, or?
No. So we're a SaaS platform, so software as a service, and we basically license signs on a per sign per month basis. And because we are, working citywide, hopefully with a transport authority, what we try to do is actually to deploy free of charge within that city, but then work for the long term with them. So we're not into just having something up for, let's say the World Cup. We'd like to work with that city for the long term.
Mm-hmm. But I guess if there were, I know our team out in Dubai were working on Expo, which is quite a big deal out there. And one of the projects we were doing was looking at potential congestion around entrance and egress from the site at peak times and stuff like that. And I think if we'd known you back then there would have been a conversation about how can you publish local transport information and peaks and all that sort of information scattered around Expo. But I mean, would that have been feasible in terms of like a one-off project?
I think it would have been, yeah. And one of the interesting things that we looked at during the pandemic, when we got funding from Innovate UK, was to look at other elements of information that would make the customer or make the journey easier for people. So, for example, we looked at crowd density. Yeah. So bringing in mobile phone data. So it's about 15 minutes delayed, which is the best we could find, but it would allow us to plot on a map how busy certain places are so that people could, if they wished, avoid those particular areas. So those sort of crowd density things, there's quite a lot of those platforms that are available for inside areas because of cameras and whatnot. But in the wider public place-based areas, really it's only mobile phone data that is available at the moment.
Great. So, I mean, where next for PassageWay? So is it a push to other transport operators, or is there new technology you're developing?
We are on an Accelerator at the moment, which is a fast-track business development program, which is being run by Transport for West Midlands, HS2, and a company called Telefonica. And so we're looking at interesting 5G applications for what we're doing to make it scale. And also we're working, we just announced yesterday a project to bring real-time live train information to remote train stations in Wales, which is actually quite important because a lot of these places don't have real-time train information. And I can be a bit specific for a second, because the reason they don't have it, they do have customer information service screens up on the platform, but how the information from those screens is derived from a train going over a trigger point and then to another trigger point, and then the software basically saying, well, it took that long to get from A to B, therefore it's going to arrive here in C. But actually, in the remote network, rural network, the trigger points are so far between each other that actually all the data is completely guesstimated and it doesn't update hardly ever. So what we're doing is working with a company called Signalbox, who track every train in the UK in real time through 3 or 4G technology and a little bit of magic. And we're taking their data and they're putting up posters in these train stations with a QR code. Customers will scan the QR code and they will open up a personal digital sign on their device that will have the real-time information.
That sounds amazing. Whenever we have these discussions with smart techie guys such as yourself, your mind just starts wondering about all the possibilities. How do you stay focused? And
well, I think it's about having this vision, which is trying to connect people, places, and communities to the public transport information that's around them, to get people onto the public transport. So really our interest is the journey for people to move around the place-based environment. And I think anything else that we do around that, whether it's air quality data, crowd density, whatever it may be, is all supporting that primary objective. But I think you're right. There are lots of other things that are out there that could well be interesting, but really you've got to focus in on what it is you're doing.
Yeah, maybe a step back. But how did you get into this?
We've always loved public transport, and Transport for London gave us this opportunity and we've grasped it with both hands.
It all sounds brilliant and lovely, and obviously in my experience, just using phones and computers, tech stuff always goes wrong. So, I mean, how do you make things sort of bomb-proof, especially when you're operating in high footfall, very hard-working physical environments?
I mean, ultimately, we can only be responsible for what we do, which is the delivery of the signed URLs. So we've been careful when we develop it, in that it is, we use Amazon Web Services, so everything is hosted on that. and we're all in the cloud, so there's no sort of critical points of failure in our own infrastructure. And we are obviously also dependent on the Transport for London API as well. So there are some elements that could go wrong, but to be honest, if they go wrong, then lots of other things are going to go wrong at the same time for many other applications. But we've built it in such a way that if things do fall over from one of those data points, then everything recovers immediately.
Are there any future plans to try and make that information more interactive, or is it just
no? I mean, there's a few. There was one that was announced the other day for a city in America where they're putting out totems, and they're broadly similar to those in-link totems that you might have seen around the UK, but actually they've got the whole screen as being interactive, and you can tap on it and say, you want to go do this or do that. We are not keen on having interactive screens for public transport, mainly because of privacy concerns. Because if you imagine that you may be at a bus shelter by yourself and you're putting in your destination, there may be others around you that actually use that information for inappropriate uses. And I think in a busy bus shelter where everything is time sensitive, you don't want to have someone standing in front of it, interacting with it, when all you want to know is my bus coming? And is there a delay?
So, I mean, in a general principle, you think physical, digital signage or real-time information is better displayed in the physical environment. Maybe the more interactive stuff happens on the phone or the personal device.
I think so. I think for me, interaction should happen via your personal device, but that there should be within the built environment real-time information that makes people's experience of that built environment better.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, one of the things we look at, especially recently, like I said, we get asked more and more by clients to look at the technological and digital landscape. The ambition by this whole smart city initiative, and for them, they're finding that it's about putting the user, the customer, the passenger at the heart of the service, and looking at their sort of journeys and usages of the cityscape and seeing where you can connect things up. Because you're one end transport, there's people at other ends offering, parking services, there's people who go into a shop or a shopping centre, they've got their app or whatever. It's like, is there a future world where some of these things can all be joined up to give people more bespoke, tailored digital services for them?
I think that you're right. I mean, from our perspective, we see lots of data out there. And really what you want to try and do is to let that data ebb and flow around the place. So to be able to access that data and make it easy for people to understand and act upon. Parking information, for example, is relevant to people who may be thinking about going to take a train journey or going on from, someone's going to meet them at the train station, etc. Weaving that into digital signage and also travel apps as well is very important. I think that in the future we'll see much more in terms of, as we walk through places, we'll see much more digital signage relating to that place. It's sort of in the same way that in the olden days, you would get the town clock that would be above the market square, so that people who couldn't afford clocks could look up and they could see what the time is, and they've always got a reference point. Or the church bells that would go off, at 12 and 6. Those are all sort of early examples of leveraging data within the place-based environment. And what we have now is lots of real-time information that we can make the experience that much deeper.
Great. Okay. Well, I mean, if someone's interested in PassageWay or are interested in a conversation about potential things that you do, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me through you, Gideon.
Well, there's only about 3 people looking at it, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Or you can access our website at passage-way.com. That's probably the easiest way.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, thanks very much for that, Chris. And wishing you all success for PassageWay.
Thank you.
And
Well, we're big fans, actually, of the stuff you do here as well.
Well, that's nice of you to say, but I mean, I think for us the challenge is always we're what you class, I guess, as a traditional strategic wayfinding company, and we just want to keep abreast of what's going on in the world and be able to advise our clients and make our clients, customers and visitors, have much richer experiences. So I think, for us it's an experiential thing, and our niche is wayfinding. So I think there's definitely crossover in the big picture. It's about creating better experiences for people, really. So hopefully we can work together on a project very shortly. Brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our latest Wayfinding Xchange podcast. Stay tuned for further episodes and feel free to contact us with any questions and suggestions for future episodes.